Okay, why don't we get started, folks? We're just at 2:30. I'm sure there'll be others that'll be ambling in from behind there. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to USIP. My name is Sheldon Himmelfarb, and I direct USIP's Center of Innovation for Media, Conflict, and Peace Building, where we've been following developments in the Pakistani media sector for quite some time. And as everybody in this room knows, I'm quite sure, there is no shortage of drama when it comes to the fast-moving Pakistani media sector, especially that electronic media sector, which was so substantially deregulated about a decade ago. Since then, it seems as if the media is often at the eye of one storm or another, either being revered as vibrant and a vital force for good, often in collaboration with the Judiciary, or it's being vilified as corrupt and a source of violent extremism in the country. And the truth, of course, lies somewhere in between, but that is exactly what we are here to unpack with this extraordinary group of panelists who have so graciously agreed to spend the afternoon with us. Let me introduce them all to you. I ask you to hold your applause until the very end, until I've finished. I'm going to be quite brief since their bios are far too extensive and impressive for me to do justice to them in the short time that I've got here. And also, if you want the full bios, they are on a table outside this room. So, starting at the far end of the stage there, we've got Cyril Almeida, a senior columnist, reporter at large, assistant editor at Dawn, where he writes extensively on national politics, security policy, and regional affairs. Next to Cyril, we have Asma Shirazi, is a senior anchor person for Sama TV, although she began her career on Radio Pakistan, where for 7 years she was news anchor, DJ, talk show host, you name it. She was Pakistan's first female parliamentary correspondent in the electronic media, as well as the first female war correspondent covering the Lebanon-Israeli war from the borders. To Asma's right, we have Wendy Chamberlain, Ambassador Wendy Chamberlain. Ambassador Chamberlain is the president of the Middle East Institute, a 29-year veteran of the U.S. Foreign Service. She was also ambassador to Pakistan from 2001 to 2002, a particularly critical period, as we all know, for American involvement in the region following 9/11. And then here to Wendy's right, we have Imran Aslam. Imran is the president and chief content officer of GeoTV, and we are really very lucky to have him join us. As many of you will recall from the invitations that we had sent out earlier, we had Geo founder and CEO Mir Ibrahim on the program. But Mir alerted us at the weekend that he had to stay back in Pakistan to deal with the most recent crisis and allegations that are swirling around the media sector, which I'm sure we will talk about here today. So we're really fortunate that Imran, who has long been involved in Pakistani media, first at the Star, then the News, and now with Geo, that he agreed to jump in here. So lots of experience in journalism with Imran, but I should also say that he has written plays for television and political satire as well. So Imran, thank you again for joining us, especially at such short notice. And finally, we've got here on my left our esteemed moderator, Steve Inskeep, and host of Morning Edition, who is not only an impressive journalist and anchor, but is also an expert himself on Pakistan. If you haven't seen his book on Karachi, entitled Instant City, Life and Death in Karachi, I really would recommend it to you, along with the multitudes of others on Amazon who rave about it. It is a great read, and as Ambassador Chamberlain and I were just discussing, not enough folks have seen this book and really should. It gives great insight into both the megalopolis boom around the world as well as Pakistan and Karachi. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming this esteemed panel here today. I also want to point out to folks that we've got we are doing a live webcast today. So for our audience around the globe, and let me tell those on the webcast. You can use Twitter to interact with the panelists and each other during the course of the event. You'll see on our webcast page a streaming Twitter feed. To join in, just use our hashtag for the day, which is hashtag USIPPAC. That's hash USIPPAC. And when we go to our audience during the Q&A session, we'll also be going down here to the front row. We've got Anand Varghese of our team, who is going to be doing the live tweeting and chatting with you all. Relay your questions to Anand. Anand will relay the questions to Steve and to the panel. So for folks who are there at home watching the webcast, please lean in. We really want you to be a core part of this conversation. And for those folks here in the room, in terms of electronic media, please silence those cell phones unless you feel like tweeting with Anand in the front row. Okay, we, as they say in the old movie Smokey and the Bandits, we have a long way to go and a short time to get there. So I'm going to hand the podium to my colleague now, Akif Ahmed, without whom this event would not have been possible. Akif is part of the leadership team of the U.S.-Pakistan Leaders Forum, which really brought together this group of esteemed speakers here for the last couple of days for a very important set of meetings that took place this week with their American counterparts in the media. So I'm going to let Akif tell you about that as a way of kind of framing the discussion that we're going to be having here on the panel today. Akif?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm not quite significant, but what I represent, I think, is growing in significance, the U.S.-Pakistan Leaders Forum. We believe, essentially, that if the people of Pakistan and the people of America can learn to either make money together, make a difference together, or do both, they can lower the temperature in this relationship and raise the optimism around possibilities. I'll just share two stories that will frame what we did this weekend. 25 Pakistani senior media leaders came to the U.S. to meet their counterparts in America to talk about cooperation and partnership building. Why? Because when I was in Iowa 5 weeks ago, I talked to a group of high school students about Pakistan. I was invited out to give a series of lectures, and I asked them, when I say Pakistan, what do you say? These were 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, African Americans, Hispanics, boys and girls, whites, all stripes and colors. They said terrorism, violence, war, guns, oppression of women, Islam, spicy food, and traditional clothing. I said, that's a pretty scary place. And they said, yeah. But by the end of the conversation that we had, I asked them, how many of you would like a pen pal in Pakistan? And they all went and raised their hands. When I was in Karachi in March, I had a car with a driver. His name was Mazhar. He was convinced that everything bad in Pakistan was America's fault. Price of food was high, America's fault. Violence in Karachi, America's fault. Anything you saw on television, America's fault. Mazhar's been driving for 10 years. He can't read. He had to stop going to school at age 6 to support his family. He said, all I get is what I know is from television. And I've been driving for 10 years. I've made enough money to support my family. My girls are going to school. That was his most proud moment. He said, I can't wait for them to graduate so they can teach their father how to read, so I can know more. I told him about my story growing up in America. I said, now what do you really think about America? He says, the land of opportunity and the land of justice. And we're still trying to figure that out in my country. So what we do at the Leaders Forum is create space for dialogue amongst the folks outside of government who have influence in both societies to talk about ways they can improve this relationship. So we're glad to sponsor and co-support this event. Thank you for your time. Turning it over to Steve.
All right. Thanks very much to you both. Atif, I'm glad you brought up that gentleman's story, because I feel like that is so much of Pakistan that is not necessarily understood in the United States, the ambition of people and the striving of people. And Sheldon, thank you for the gracious introduction. You called me an expert. I want to reject that title. I don't deserve it. I'm a listener, I guess, is the best way to put it. And I have listened to people in Pakistan when I've gone, including some of the people on stage. I've read your work, I've seen your work, I admire your work, and I learn a lot from it. And it's an honor to be talking with you today. I want to try to characterize first where the Pakistani media are at the moment, and just see if we can come up with a few words that describe where the media are, where the media are in Pakistan at the moment. And I was thinking of a comparison. I was thinking of cable television in the United States. And I tried to think of a few words that, in my mind, characterize cable TV news in the U.S. You know, words like calm and reasoned and relevant and worldly, nonpartisan, measured, you know, all the things that we associate with cable TV news in America. So with that as a backdrop, let me just throw it out to you. What are some words that you would use to describe the media and the media debate in Pakistan right now? Please, go right ahead.
I think it's an industry that's having a great conversation with itself. It's an argument taking place. And it's raucous, it's maddening, it's vibrant, and it's fairly diversified, I think. And that's not a bad thing. It's not following one particular line of thought.
We should explain, I'm sure that many people here know this, but the job that you do is a job that did not exist in Pakistan, or almost did not exist in Pakistan 10 or 15 years ago.
It didn't at all. We had a television, which was the Pakistan television, state broadcaster, and it was said about it that seeing is not believing, because it was, you know, every night at 9 p.m. with 1 p.m., the Prime Minister.
Everywhere that he went, his kind of day book,
comings
basically.
and goings. But having said that, it had a function, and that was a very important function, because it was dealing with a non-fragmented society, and it was creating a narrative which was uniform. And I think in those days of that one state television, where we all sat and watched the same program, listened to the same music, there was a sense of nationhood which might have been developing. Now, whether it was a false type of nationhood or otherwise is another debate. But the dissenting voices were not being let in, and the opposition forces and the thinkers felt that it was not exactly doing what it should be doing. And later on, it fell into the trap of commercialization as well. With the growth of the electronic media, even in those days, I think the print media was the only place or a sanctuary where you could go and listen to other voices. With all the censorship, with all the problems that we had in those days, the fact remains that we learned to write between the lines, cross lines, and smuggle in, you know, little stories. Even once, I remember, when I was the editor of The Star, we were not allowed to even take the name of Benazir Bhutto or any political party. And there used to be a guy standing behind us as we pasted the newspaper.
This is when, which decade, by the way?
84.
So this is while Zia Haq, yes, was the dictator.
And they would pull out pieces from the paper. And so we went with blank pages, which was a great form of protest in those days. So that happened. But I remember doing something which was a little more innovative, which was using the classified pages of the newspaper to smuggle in little snippets of information. And it went on for a while till they caught on that they couldn't buy cars here.
What do you mean smuggle information? It would say, well, I mean, South Asian dictators seeks hangman or something like that. Yeah.
Little humor pieces. There's a new car which goes PPP, you know. Stuff like that.
But it's changed now, and we should remind people that General Pervez Musharraf, whatever else you think of him, freed up the media, freed up the electronic media particularly, and there's been you have a skeptical look on your face. Am I giving him too much credit?
Well, I think, you know, it happened. Just to give you a background, it took us about 5 years to get a license to operate during Musharraf's time, more than 5 years. We went and did an offshore operation. We were broadcasting live 24 hours a day into Pakistan from Dubai, from the media city. And the model was Radio Caroline. Okay, so we
Pirate radio.
Pirate radio.
Okay.
Basically, and we kept beaming in till they realized that with this new technology, which they just couldn't figure out how we were smuggling out news and footage and what have you, and bringing it back into the country. I think eventually he just had to give, and slowly but surely the channels proliferated.
Which has been good for you, Asma Shirazi, has it not?
I think the story which is told by Imran Saab, and he is my teacher as well. So I started working with him as far as independent media is concerned. And I think our media is getting mature. It's not mature, but it's getting mature.
Getting mature.
And it's emerging day by day. Though we had great struggle, we are following those elders who struggled against Jinnah Zia's era, and they struggled in Musharraf's era. I was also there, and I watched myself. I was there as a struggler in the streets and on the roads, and we did shows and we struggled. And I got banned as well. I was the female anchor at that time. Got threatened all the time, day and night, followed by ISI guys and spies, those who were following us daily. So I think the struggle is still going on, and we should not claim, and I cannot claim myself, that we are emerged as very mature journalists or our media is very mature. But we should not forget that we have a very unique environment in Pakistan. This is a very unique place as far as the multi-dimensional events are going on, multi-dimensional threats we are facing off. And our journalists, they are working day and night. They don't get enough salaries. They do get threats from all the parties and political parties and Taliban and various groups and pressure groups, and it's a very different and difficult society which we are having right now. But I think it will take some time. The recent scandal regarding media, it will take us to some dimension, I think, and this is the time we have to form some group or a press council, something like that, so we can overlook all these things. And I think I'm hopeful. We should be hopeful. It's going on, yeah.
Okay, you said emerging, you said hopeful, you also referred to a scandal. I want to follow up on that in a moment, but let me bring our other two panelists into discussion. What words would you add to that list of words that properly describe what the Pakistani media is doing right now, Ambassador?
Well, the truth is, I think, and as the irony of your opening remark indicated, the American media and the Pakistan media have a lot in common. Both are info entertainment. Both are driven by audience ratings as a privatized media. Both are driven by the profit bottom line, and this does shape the kind of content. With all due respect, I'm saying this about our media as well. An emphasis on giving the audience what they want to hear rather than what they need. And as a mature and maturing media, perhaps ours is becoming less mature, we are sometimes forgetting that there's an accountability to accuracy in facts, in telling the story, in educating the public. And I think both medias now ought to take a hard look at themselves for that.
Okay, so emerging, hopeful, American-like, ratings-driven, American-like, that will discredit you guys forever with your audience. Cyril Almeida, would you like to add a word?
Sure, I mean, there's so many other words already out there. I'd probably add the word open.
Open.
Because, and this is both a good thing and a bad thing. There's nothing in Pakistan that you can't discuss on TV or in print anymore, be it Balochistan, be it the army's policy in Afghanistan, be it corruption of the president and the prime minister, be it misgovernance. Karachi, also a city dominated by the NQM, very violent. That's perhaps the one area, because most media houses are still headquartered in Karachi, that the media, for obvious reasons, doesn't necessarily go very deeply into. But what you've really seen in the last few years is breaking down of old barriers, concerns. I mean, when Imran started off, that's a press that I can't even recognize. If I want to write something against X, Y, or Z, and usually it's Z.
Mainly Z.
You can do that, and but that comes with a downside, a flip side to it, which is that it also allows influence peddlers, people in the business, because they're trying to expand their influence that they exert on the political process, or whether it's business interests, etc. So open is probably the word I'd use in both a negative and more positive sense.
Okay, go right ahead.
Can I follow up on
Please,
that?
please, go right ahead.
Because I want to push back just a little bit. One of the similarities I think that we also have in our media is a delicacy in the relationship with the military. Certainly I have talked to Pakistani journalists who feel that there is a perception that there is military intimidation of the Pakistani media, from the soft intimidation by chilling effect to perhaps harder and infiltration of some media offices to, as we've seen just last year, maybe even torture and disappearance and murder. On the American side, and
Let's remind people, Salim Shahzad is perhaps who you're thinking of, a Pakistani journalist who wrote about sensitive matters and was found killed in a canal, I believe his body was found in a canal. Please continue.
I don't exempt the United States. I think we had a bit of a kerfuffle last week when Chris Hayes of MSNBC, in an analysis of the lexicon of the way there's a groupthink in the way all of our media discusses servicemen. I come from a long line of servicemen. I would bore you if I told you how, so this isn't, here I am already qualifying, I guess, for the reasons of the point I'm trying to make. His point was when the media, all the media calls every single soldier a hero, that it might diminish those truly exceptional soldiers who are out in the front line risking death and doing truly heroic things. And he was asking for a reflection on that. They came down on him like a sledgehammer. And he quickly, perhaps too quickly, apologized before there could be a dialogue and a debate on it. So I think the point I'm making is it isn't just Pakistan, although it might be a little bit more extreme there, but we ourselves need to reflect on the militarization, the effects of that in our own media.
Well, let me please go right ahead.
Sorry. I think I agree to a large extent that there is an infiltration, and we do look over our shoulders even today.
The military has infiltrated the media. That's what you're saying.
At the same time, I think the threshold, has risen. When the Abbottabad incident took place, I think what happened was that media said that you were aiding and Abbottabading them at that time. Something was happening. Yeah. So you were either complicit or you were, incompetent or whatever. And we went hammer and tongs at the military, questioning where that money had gone, why they were not prepared, and what nonsense about sovereignty, and so on and so forth, and territorial integrity and all that. Why were you not prepared? Or why were you hiding him? Or were you hiding him? And so on and so forth. All those questions were asked openly in virtually all media, print as well as electronic. The same thing with the MQM. I think we've started to get to those taboo areas. The sign of maturity shouldn't be that we grow a beard. It should be something else, I think. And I think that maturity is emerging. I wouldn't say we're there. We're far, far away from it. But as Cyril said, hopeful and open.
Well, let me suggest something as a consumer of Pakistani media that I've experienced from time to time. Sometimes a story is told with a lot of details left out. And if I talk to the journalist who wrote the story, he may say, well, I can allude to the story, but if I put in too many details, someone will get angry and I could be in a lot of trouble.
I think the answer to that is the problem that we have with access to information. And when we're talking in this present prism of U.S.-Pakistan relations, India will creep in somewhere, relations, the access to information is just not there. And so, as you know, if there is no access to information and you have to do a story, then there will be rumor, there will be speculation, and sometimes conspiracy. I don't know if they're leaving it out because they're scared. I think they don't have the full story most of the time. And so they light a little fire and hope it will spread. And somebody else might add another piece to it. But not all the time. I think we're telling it now. We're openly saying what we need to say. And driven by commercialism, which is a great censorship on free thought, because I think commerce can be quite debilitating from time to time. But I also find that in certain cases, and I speak for my own channel, we have lost a lot of money, with this activism, especially during the judiciary. We were shut down for 3 months, as you know. And also in the type of public sort of actions that we take, the activism, whether it's with India-Pakistan relations, or when we talk about the judiciary and its activism, these are not necessarily rating points, but I think we win the love of the audience.
I want to understand something since you're sitting here, and then Asma, I believe, has a point to add. You talk about activism. Your channel, I think, is known for activist journalism, and I'd just like to know mechanically where that comes from. Do you, as one of the senior executives, essentially say, we're really going to focus on Zardari's corruption, we're really going to focus on whatever subject, and we're just going to flog it endlessly?
I think it came from testing the waters, because I think a lot of the time people were looking at the media as some sort of a savior that had arrived on the scene that could, talk truth to power, if you like. And we tested it with the Hudud Ordinance, which was a law which Zia had brought in, which equated rape with adultery. And
Essentially, the woman is guilty if she is
the moment
raped.
she comes in and she says that I've been raped, she has to prove it with 4 male witnesses. So we did this huge campaign, and it succeeded in creating an enabling environment for legislation to take place and to withdraw the clauses. And we spoke not to the usual suspects. We didn't even talk to a single woman. We went to the mullah, and we brought them on television, and we had this close shots of all these mullahs from every section. And we asked them a simple question. Could God, in his infinite wisdom, create a law like this, which is totally irrational? And they said, no. There's a problem here. And I think we can talk about repealing it. 2,500 women came out of prison at the end of that. And a new law was passed. So the follow-up society has to do, to continue to try and get it implemented as much as possible. But that, I think, started to resonate with us. And we said we need to take up some causes. And the judiciary was the next one that came along. Mm-hmm. And I think it was very, very useful for us to experience that and forge a sort of an interesting relationship with the judiciary, who we felt was also an accountability czar.
Have you ever taken on a cause where after a few months you said, actually, maybe we've gone a little too far with this one?
Zardari says that.
Okay. Asma, you were going to add something to that.
Yes, I think we should discuss this in our society. There's either we should be activist or not. And here there is a very defined line where Pakistani media should consider, and they should serious consideration on this point. We are supporting judiciary, but we are damaging democracy, maybe. We are supporting democracy, and maybe we are damaging the society. So there are very fine line between all these things. And I think here is a point. As a viewer, I have, and as a journalist, I have some serious questions on role of geo and their content, as far as judiciary is concerned, or democracy is concerned, or various things are concerned. And I think there is the point where the whole society, which is not only anti-People's Party, which is not only anti-Mullah, which is not only anti-Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz or something else, we have various groups. Either we should be a party of some party, or we should be very independent, giving news, clear clear opinion and unbiased opinion or something like that. So here is a question where we should, I think, move forward, and we have to look forward to formulate counselors, press councils, complaint sections, something like that. So I think as we are emerging, and we have example of India, I think, there is a very strong press council, and they face the same question. I covered their elections in 2004, and I came to know while I was at Delhi that NDTV is supporting Congress and Aaj Tak is supporting the other party. I'm missing the name. BJP, exactly. So, you know, it was strange for me to know as a student of journalism that how they are working. I mean, they have their interest with the BJP and they have their interest with Congress. So how they can deliver stories without biasness. So now they are emerging, and we are emerging too. But on the other side, we have experienced a lot. We have covered Taliban. We have go beyond everything, you know. We have covered the terrorism, extremism, and fundamentalism in the society. I can give you my example. When I started working with Pakistan Television or Geo, I went on roads as I was working as a reporter, and nobody was ready to speak to me. They were ready to speak to my camera person. And I was a stranger roaming with my camera around the streets and, you know, around the city, and it was very different and difficult for me to ask them. And once I was
Is that because
very
you were a
furious.
woman, or because they didn't get the notion of...
They didn't have any idea, but after I covered the whole campaign of Hudud that was for good and all the good, I think, with Geo TV at that time. And now the perception is totally changed because of the media. People, women, they want to come on screen. They are confident. They are career-oriented. They are very confident. They want to live like a human being in a society where girls are being killed just for clapping, you know. So I think it's a change, and this change is occurred just because of media.
You've said so many things that I'd like to follow up on. Let me pick one. You suggested at the beginning, you raised the possibility that Geo in particular, or that some in the media, are supporting the judiciary at the expense of democracy. That seems like an important question to raise on this day. As many people in this room will know, the cause of an independent judiciary is what actually drove a military dictator, Pervez Musharraf, out of power. Many in the media have continued supporting the judiciary, but there are questions about whether it's gone too far. And in fact, we're talking here on a day when the Supreme Court of Pakistan has told the Prime Minister of an elected parliament that he's out of office, that he's done, for reasons that the Prime Minister has argued are unconstitutional. Have you gone too far?
I mean, we'll have to go into this case, in this particular case, and we have to go back to the point that this was a government that came into power, we think, in a contaminated way, through a deal.
Mm-hmm. With Musharraf.
With Musharraf. And that deal was challenged, and that deal was declared illegal by the Supreme Court. The principle on which the Prime Minister was asked to come to court was whether or not he would write a letter to the Swiss authorities to reopen the cases against
his
President
boss.
Jatali.
Yeah.
He took the political course, decided to go the route of martyrdom, and said he will not write it. And this, the Supreme Court ruled, was contempt. And contempt brings with it, disqualification from Parliament. Now, the whole drama was covered. Now, this was going on in the Supreme Court. Should we cover it or shouldn't we cover it? Now, how do we cover it? What is the bias that creeps into your reportage? Are the reporters doing the bidding of their masters, the owners? Do they sense that we want them to write or push in a certain direction? These are questions that can be asked. I personally think that we need to look at it now, that it has happened, and try and understand whether or not we have damaged democracy by doing so. But I don't think democracy has fallen yet. In fact, this is a process of democracy because judiciary is part of democracy. And it was the first time that we've had an activist judiciary that was questioning certain things within the realms of the legal framework. He may be unpopular because he takes up strange suo motu notices against actresses carrying vodka bottles.
The Chief Justice,
Yes.
you mean? Yeah.
But at the same time, there are certain things that he's taken up which are far-reaching. And we thought we should support it. For instance, the corruption charges against these governments were serious. The rental power thing, the steel mill case, various other things that have cropped up. And also the obfuscation of justice by the executive, not implementing certain orders, constantly standing up and ridiculing the judiciary, which will lead to gridlock at the end of the day, which is dangerous if these two pillars start, fighting with each other. That allows us to start listening to those boots in the background.
Ambassador.
There is a notion, though, that if you take it up couple of 30,000 feet and away from some of these details, which are extremely important, and I don't disagree with you a bit, that democracy in Pakistan would be strengthened with a full completion of a full term of an elected president. Yeah. And in fact, some are suggesting that it's not until there are 3 full terms of elected presidents that democracy the roots can actually get strong. That this is extremely important. And in fact, it is true the judiciary played an enormously significant role in pushing a military dictator to take off his uniform, but not necessarily to leave office, simply to run for office as a civilian elected official. He didn't win, but that's fine. That's democracy. But the importance of completing terms is in the long term very important. And I think the suggestion is if so much raucous noise, nitpicking, you might be missing the trees through the forest or something.
It's about that.
Or something.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's easy to beat up on Geo because they're the biggest boys on the block. I think across the gamut of channels in Pakistan, there are problems. Geo is just the largest and probably the most watched, or is the most watched. I think with the judiciary and the media, this angle, the lawyers' movement was the apex of the media's power, the electronic media's power in Pakistan. They really came of age at that time where they saw what supporting or sort of agenda-driven coverage could lead to, and it led to the ouster of Musharraf and the restoration of the Chief Justice, unprecedented, had beneficial or benefits for the democratic process. But then I think what you're seeing now is the media coming to terms with its own limitations. Geo, since we were just talking about this, and as you mentioned, has gone hammer and tongs after Zardari for 4 years. And they haven't been able to dislodge him. He survived all those cuts and will continue to survive. So I think you've had the media, the electronic media in particular, in 2007, 2008, 2009, tasting what they felt was real power. And now that they're coming off that high, as the internal squabbling and the messiness that is the electronic media in Pakistan comes out through YouTube, through Twitter. You have these, behind-the-scenes tapes that were revealed or released recently. You're seeing that the media itself is, I wouldn't say being cut down to size, but perhaps might lead to some self-correction, course-correction going forward. 2009 and the lawyers' movement was a problem for the media, I think, the electronic media, because it really kind of went to its head. It was like cocaine, just the influence that they had. These anchors who were always stars became rock stars. They walk into an airport, they walk into a restaurant. They're more well-known than 80% of our politicians. And that's kind of when they started to push the envelope further, and then they realized, actually, no, they're not the masters of the universe. There are other forces at play in Pakistan.
So we can add another word to our list of words about the Pakistani media: cocaine. That's good. That's good. Now you
Between lines.
Oh, writing between the lines. It's cocaine. Snorting between the lines. Let's hear it. Let's hear it for the GOTV man. All right. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
No.
I love it. You should have your own show. In any case, you just talked about the media being cut down to size. You also, Cyril, earlier used the phrase influence peddling. I think it's important to come back to that because, as some here will know, in recent days there's been something of a scandal that has blown up in the Pakistani media. There's an influential, I think real estate developer is the best way to describe him, Malik Riaz, a friend of President Zardari, that's also fair, I think, to say, who went on television and said that he personally has paid money for favorable coverage to a large number of journalists.
The Chief Minister's son.
And the Chief Minister's son.
Sorry, Chief Justice's
Chief,
son.
excuse me, Chaudhry, Chief Justice's son, of course. And a list of people has emerged on letterhead, supposedly, of the developer's company, Body of Town. And here we are, and Asma Shirazi, your name is on there. Your name is on there.
Unfortunately, I was the lowest paid anchor, so I should go somewhere.
Pay the equivalent of $48,000, according to him. Yes, I'm sorry.
I didn't even
Just
make it to
48.
the list
I didn't
because
either.
print doesn't matter.
Print isn't-
And Imran Sahib is in
didn't
this
make
field
it.
since last 25, 50 years, maybe 40 years or something like that. But his name is there, not there.
Hadn't made it.
The thing is, unfortunately, yes, there are some few black sheeps in our media. That is for sure. And I think that is there here in US as well. That is everywhere, including every country. But we were pursuing that they should be exposed. And suddenly the list came up. The first list, my name was not there. And I was thanking God, look at God, thank God you saved me. And my name is not there and account numbers are there. So this is the real list, you know. These people have taken money from Malik Riaz and this is obvious. But suddenly the second list came up and my name was also included over there. And I was strange, the account number, I never seen that account number in my life.
The list has
I
a
never
bank account
met
number,
Mr.
yeah.
Malik Riaz. And now one of our senior anchor, Nusrat Javed, he has investigated. Some PTI worker, he initiated that list. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's worker. All those anchors who are there in that list, most of them, they are anti-PTI. Not anti-PTI, but they criticize them.
This is
so
a
they are
relatively
not
new
favorite
party
among
started by
them.
Imran
Yeah.
Khan.
We are going to challenge this list in Supreme Court, and if nobody will go, I will go personally. And I will challenge this list and I will go to the Public Accounts Committee as well. I have spoken to the chairman and I will go to them as well and we will investigate thoroughly. And I think this is for good, I think, and this is the moment we should purify ourselves as well. We should be accountable, as Cyril said. We anchors were, maybe sometimes you can include myself as well, we were thinking that we can make and break the governments. 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So, you know, these 3 hours are very important for democracy, for judiciary, and for institutions in Pakistan, and we are making and breaking them in these 3 hours. These are prime time areas. But yes, people loved us, people love us. We go to the street during the Musharraf government, we struggled, and I myself went to the street and we held 27 hours long marathon transmission from Islamabad to Lahore, and that was a convoy. We were walking with the Chief Justice and I was also there, and people were coming, they were kissing on my hands as well. So I think people should not treat us as celebrities. We are human beings. We can be incorrect. We cannot be angels, and I think they should treat us as persons and as individuals of the society with biasness and other things as well. So I think the accountability should be there. That should be very much there. This is the moment, and I think we feel that as far as myself is concerned, I present myself for accountability, definitely.
You deny the accusation?
I totally deny. If I will be taking money, it would be in crore, millions. It's not for $48,000, you know. It's a very small price of mine. I'm insulted and disgusted, seriously.
I'd just like to add, even American baseball players who are Hall of Famers get their day in court, and some of them get acquitted.
There we go. There we go. Let me ask about a somewhat related subject, though. You alluded to a few bad apples. I've heard journalists based in Pakistan say, and I'm paraphrasing here, I find these charges implausible, that these specific people would get these specific payments, that there would be a record on company letterhead. It seems absurd. And yet people will go on to say, I think that there are people who will peddle influence in more subtle ways, or will get their payment in more subtle ways. Is there something to that?
Yeah, please include not only Malik Riaz, but our establishment, military establishment, our ISI. They were used to pay, they are paying some journalists, and yes, those who are not in favor of them, they don't they take dictations from them, yes, they are, and somewhere there, that is linking to that link as well. So I think that is very obvious and clear. And we were speaking against ISI's role after 2nd of May. And we were speaking a lot, rather every name you can have a look on the list. I think we were openly speaking and criticizing. It's not a fashion, but we really want to make them accountable as well. Their accountability should also be there. So that could be one of the crimes, but as far as conspiracy theory is concerned, this angle should not be missed.
I want to mention to people we're going to go to questions in a couple of moments. If you have questions for our panelists, there's a microphone there, there's a microphone there. I believe the method is that you'll line up at those microphones, and we'll go to you in a couple of minutes. Anand has also been you've got some Twitter questions for us perhaps here in just a moment. So that's all coming up. But let me ask Cyril Almeida to weigh in here, because you've written about this subject recently, this whole question of influence peddling, and you used the phrase, how bad is it? How should we think of it?
I mean, I'd add to the military and business tycoons, the politicians themselves. Zardari has his favorites, and Yusuf Raza Gilani has his favorites, and Chaudhry Shujaat, the regional politician, does, and the MQM does, etc. It's a very incestuous relationship between the media, politicians, and big business in Pakistan. The media is not a well self-regulated industry. Remember, historically, it's been a print industry in Pakistan. Who became a journalist? Someone who couldn't get a job in any other profession. Not referring to Imran, of course.
Right.
Or someone, aspiring
anywhere else.
or someone aspiring for influence, or sort of trying to quickly climb up the ladder. The model is flawed. Owners tolerate corruption within their organizations. They don't pay them salaries regularly or well or decent wages, etc. So the incentives within the industry are ripe for this kind of exploitation and manipulation. And then you bring in politicians of the military, the establishment as we call it, big business. They have big interests at stake. And suddenly you have people with a microphone or a column or some front page space somewhere. And that person is amenable to being, I won't call them bought off, but perhaps, sure.
So sorry, I'm just trying to think that there is a case again. Sorry, I keep bringing up the Supreme Court, and they don't pay me. But there's a very, very important case in court of the ISI paying money through a banker to sort of win an election, and the formation of a political party, the IGI, which was set up against Benazir Bhutto. The money was paid by the ISI through a banker. And this case has been going on and on and on and on for years and years. So I think this was just the tip of the iceberg, because there's what used to be called lifafa journalism, the envelope journalism, where somebody would turn up and just give you a little, envelope full of money, or take you on a nice junket somewhere, and then allow you to go out shopping and stuff like that. So I think the journalists also, there are very few, I think very, very few, and I'd like to count myself as one of them, who refuse to do these junkets and talk to the owners and say, listen, if you want me to go somewhere with this guy, pay for it, These are sort of ethical norms that we picked up from the West, actually, where these sort of things are not allowed, really. That you jump on a plane and go off with the president for Hajj 15 times. It just doesn't happen. Very few journalists, I think, were immune from this. I'm sure Cyril is one of them, Asma maybe. I'm not sure, but generally speaking, we should try and avoid this. I mean, this is something that I feel Because this is when you have a closeness with a politician or a general or whatever, and you can't really write stories about that person once you've had a nice meal with him somewhere in Monte Carlo.
In Monte Carlo specifically. It is remarkable to think about the fact we've been talking about television, but I'm aware of at least a couple of Pakistani newspapers in recent years that have gone months without paying the staff.
Right.
They just stopped paying the reporters. And it seems like, entirely aside from the ridiculousness of that, it seems like a great invitation to abuse. You've got to make money somewhere.
Even at the moment, there's a couple of newspapers that have not paid their staff for between 9 and 6 months.
That's right.
6 to 9.
Yes.
I mean, we've gone through bad times ourselves during this judiciary crisis when we were shut down. It was a struggle to pay salaries, but you had to retain your staff and to keep them, and we did. But there have been times when we've also been behind, in terms of paying salaries. Sometimes a month goes by, and it's the recession that has hit us as well. So it opens it up to all kinds of offers that might come your way, I suppose.
Anand, let's go over to you. Do you have questions from Twitter? People have been, what's the hashtag again, by the way? USIP PAC. PAK. Okay, what do you got? You can speak loudly and I'll repeat it if the microphone doesn't work.
Yeah, we've got a great question from Omar Qureshi in Karachi. His question is about sort of a public media relationship. How does the U.S. try to respond to the rampant anti-Americanism found in Pakistan and much of what is fueled in the Pakistani media? That's probably a question for Wendy.
Yeah.
Right ahead.
Question for me. Well, frankly, one of the differences, I mentioned some of the similarities between the Pakistan and the American press. One of the differences is that the American public and the American press is very inward-looking. Much of our coverage is about domestic affairs. When we do cover Pakistani affairs, it's also about us. It's about terrorism, which is about us. It's about bin Laden, which is about us. Ray Davis, drones. All the
Why do
stories.
they hate us so much? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
all the stories you see in the American press are really about the United States. This is deeply resented in Pakistan. In contrast, in Pakistan, the public, even a public that has estimated 50 to 70% illiteracy, are avid current events consumers. 80%, I'm told, in urban areas get their news from television. Even if they're illiterate, they follow the news. They follow current events. They know everything about the United States. And they feel very hurt, resentful that we seem to not understand Pakistan. Our journalists show up when there's a crisis, an earthquake, a flood. They fly in, they get a fixer and a translator. They write a few, as Pakistanis see it, simplistic stories. They leave, and Pakistanis believe we never really understand Pakistan. And that's one reason for an anti-Americanism. Yes, the American public is aware of the deep anti-Americanism in Pakistan. I think a recent Pew poll had it dropped to 7%. That's pretty low, but it dropped from 11%. And what I used to like to say when the approval rating in Pakistan for the United States was at 11%, so was the American approval rating for Congress at 11%. So
They've gotten it up to 13, by the way. It's improved. But go on, please.
No, that's it.
So you're basically you're underlining that there's a kind of mutual incomprehension that Americans do not seem to have the information available to try to understand another country, and that is part of the problem. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that, yes, we do not understand as a public Pakistan, and Pakistan is too obsessed with us.
Please go right ahead.
Just a small point. I think, I was thinking about it the other day, and our responses to what America does to us, or doesn't do for us, are very sort of human.
Mm-hmm.
We're so hurt, we're so emotional. Why don't you embrace us? Why don't you give us a cuddle? Please. It's all that, and there's tears, and there's, anger and resentment, and all those emotions, and pride, and, self-flagellation, everything. And the response seems to be very state-like from the Americans, territorial integrity and sovereignty, and, why should we apologize? Because that might not allow us to come in and hot pursuit or whatever, these sort of rational arguments that come forth from there. Mm-hmm. The emotional disconnect of one group of people who just want to be treated like kids, maybe, who are feeling very betrayed and unhappy with the way they perceive America. And maybe that's the narrative that is going through in the Pakistan media as well. It's a sort of a childish narrative about this, where we become human beings who are feeling bitter and hurt and left alone, and why are they going to India? And so on and so forth.
I totally agree with you. I think that is a dynamic that's in play. One of the charges that I heard from the moment I landed as ambassador in August of 2001 was, the United States has a history here of using us and leaving. You abandon us in the past, you're going to abandon us in the future. And now we have an emotional dynamic, I think, on a very personal basis, it's beginning to play in the United States, where a lot of Americans are feeling that Pakistan is pushing us away. They don't want our Kerry Luke or Berman civilian funds. They're rejecting it. They're rejecting the sense of fair play as an ally by getting into tough negotiations on the prices of each truck that passes through. There is a dynamic now of where we are beginning to feel we are getting abandoned. And a little frustrated because we know that as soon as we do sort of ratchet down this relationship, we're going to hear it again. Oh, there you go again, the American abandoned us. When in fact, there's a feeling in the United States that's just the opposite.
And that leads to a question specifically about the media. I didn't do a Google search to see how often I would find in the last year the phrase Pakistan's anti-American media, but I think I've read the phrase a lot. Is that a fair phrase? Is the media anti-American in Pakistan?
Anti-American policy? Or anti-American? I think that's a distinction that needs to be made.
Yes.
American policy, yes, you'll get a lot of detractors. And I think the Pew poll needs to frame the question as to whether, if you ask an average Pakistani, in fact, we did a survey when we were starting a youth channel, and the survey was, what is the biggest ambition you have? And every single kid didn't talk about an iPad or Nike sneakers or anything. He said an American education. Now, that tells us another story. So I don't know if it's anti-Americanism. It's basically the policies of the Americans, and also a sense of victimhood, which has engulfed not only Pakistan, but a lot of states who feel that, there has been not a balanced approach to their countries from the American state policies. So I think that little distinction.
But, I'd add, sorry, please go ahead.
No, please.
I'd add to that anti-Americanism in Pakistan is not something that just spontaneously happened. It has been a manipulated process. What we call our security establishment has cultivated anti-Americanism as a buffer against American demands. So when the U.S. says, go into North Waziristan, say, no, we can't do that, the public, the street. If the U.S. says, do this, reform, etc., it's like, we can't do it, we can't go against our own public opinion. But in cultivating that anti-Americanism or helping it, nurturing it, they've become hostage to it. It's eroded the space that the military has to make choices I would like to make, which it might, for example, right now the supply route is closed. I personally believe that the Army High Command would probably like to open it. But they can't because they've gone out there on a limb and said, well, first the apology. So now without the apology coming, they can't go back to the domestic. So the Army is an unusual entity, it's slightly different from yours, very different. But it cares about two constituencies, Army rank and file, the Jawans, the foot soldiers, and public opinion. The High Command can't find itself on the wrong side of that. Unfortunately, they often manipulate public opinion against the U.S. in ways that boomerang on them later. Now, why do they do that? I think they regard it as a bit of a faucet. You can turn on anti-Americanism and you can turn it off. So the Kerry-Lugar bill comes through, there are some conditions they don't like, they unleash a statement, and then anchors go down, the media does, we do too, saying, oh, look, the army is opposed to this, etc. And that's I think, this anti-Americanism needs to be seen in that context, that it's not happening because the population at large. For example, Pakistanis know about Kerry-Lugar, they know about drones, they know about virtually all the contours of Pak-US relations, but China is supposed to be our best friend, and Pakistanis know nothing about China. They know nothing about our relationship with China. You wouldn't find anyone on the street who could tell you how much trade's happening with China, what we're importing or exporting, or any of that. So there's a reason this information's out there. And at least I personally believe a lot of that information, negative propaganda, comes through the security establishment.
No, but obsession, yes, as Wendy said, we are obsessed of America. I think we should be, because you left us alone in hands of Mujahideen. Now they are Taliban.
We abandoned you.
That was not our war. Now it's our war. You had only one 9/11. We are having daily 9/11s just because of US. And I think we are among two warmongers. One is GHQ, the other one is Pentagon. And the people of Pakistan, they are confused. Who is more credible for them? What should they do? I mean, if they don't have necessities in their life, they don't have any, they don't feel that they are a human being, they are well treated in a state where we sent our sons for jihad, and then America was paying our mullahs as well, and I think this obsession should be very much there. We are not obsessed, we are being through all these things, and we are facing now your war, so we should be obsessed, I think.
Steve, I have a question, please.
If you'll forgive me, we'll get to questions momentarily. Let me ask you directly about the suggestion that the ambassador raised. You said that you feel like Pakistan is pushing away the United States at the moment. Is that a fair description of what Pakistan is doing and what Pakistanis want?
No, I think she's correct as far as her statement is concerned about Pakistan's pushing back. I think that is correct. We were partners in crime. We were partners in crime. But after leaving, after the Cold War, I think your Secretary of State, she admitted in front of everybody, they left alone. They left alone Pakistan. What are they doing? Why they created Mujahideen? Who is responsible for this war? I think the US is responsible for this war. And we were partner in crimes. We are criticizing our military establishment. We are criticizing. But you should take your responsibility as well.
Wendy Chamberlain, go ahead. Did you want to respond to that?
Well, I don't think we were responsible for 9/11. I think we were victims in 9/11. But the point I wanted to make earlier was we are also not doing what we need to do now to make ourselves better understood in Pakistan. You have a population where 60% of 200 million people are under the age of 20. Most of, and half of those, I mean, just do the math, were 10 years old when 9/11 occurred. And what is the state of play today? Today, Americans aren't there. We're not in Pakistan.
Physically there.
We're not physically there. There's very little people-to-people relation, because of security reasons. Our USAID and our embassy officers are behind high walls with, it took me 40 minutes as a former ambassador to get inside my former embassy, just going through one layer of security after another. How can you have a relationship with the people of Pakistan if you don't have a relationship with the people of Pakistan? And it's not entirely our fault. During the flood, for example, when the United States was the most generous donor of food relief to the flood victims, we were told by Pakistani officials that we could not, our NGOs and our USAID officers could not go and directly deliver that. it gave us give it to us, we'll deliver it. So the military popularity went sky high. But we need to have more people-to-people relations, more exchanges, more contact with the Pakistani people, because there's a whole new generation out there that we haven't even talked to yet.
Can I just
Please, you can, and then we're going to go to questions, but go right ahead.
This whole thing about the physical absence, it's becoming easier and easier to demonize the Americans. When we were growing up, we met Americans. We read Dell comics, It was still 10 cents at that time. And there was, Schwinn bikes that we aspired to. And, we knew about Daffy Duck and we knew about Mickey Mouse and everything. Mm-hmm. And there was a great, Hollywood was around. And you met Americans on a day-to-day basis. I was saying yesterday that I spent most of my life at the USIS library because it was air-conditioned. It was a place to go to. And I also, at that time, was anti-American policy. And I have a scar on my forehead, which was in a anti-Vietnam rally in Lahore, where the policeman hit me on my head. Now, that sort of stuff will only, this whole relationship has to try and go back. I was watching a little video clip of Jacqueline Kennedy visiting Pakistan. And, she was in the tribal areas, and they were giving her a goat and giving her a camel. And
open
car, waving at people. We were around then. I remember Dwight Eisenhower going and watching a cricket match, and poor chap. Just sitting there the whole day. A test match. So, this was the reality of what the relationship was. And
that's when things started to go downhill, actually. It was after that cricket match.
He said, no more.
Yeah,
Get me out of here.
And I never said that you are not victim. I agree, you are victim, but we are also victim. And this is a common ground where we can work together. We can ask for peace, and we can demand for peace. We should demand for peace, I think. So this was my whole question, that there is only one side of the picture we always see. There is another side of picture as well. What people of Pakistan are feeling, they are feeling that they were left alone with these monsters. Those are Taliban, then they were Mujahideen,
One of the most important parts of journalism, of course, is to correct when you're wrong. I have a correction. I believe I said people should line up, and you've made it clear that actually the microphones are going to come to you. Let's go with this gentleman right here. If you bring the microphone up for the first question, and as we get the microphone, let me just mention...
My name is Cami Barton.
If I might, before you get started, sir, let me to anyone who asks a question, if you can just ask a short and direct question to people, because we want to get in as many questions as we can. Please, go ahead.
My name is Cami Barton. I'm with the Pakistani Spectators, and there are rumors in the town that Haqqani was on CIA payroll before he took the charge here as an ambassador. And my second question about Shari Rahman, she was here a couple of months ago, and she didn't have the self-confidence to take people's question directly. And when she came to Washington, there were video on computer that Pakistani PM was touching her in public. And that made many people think that this was the qualification of her becoming ambassador here in Washington, D.C. Do you have any comments on that?
Too much.
Okay, all right.
Okay, good.
I'm not sure if there's anything people want to respond to there. Okay, thank you. We want direct questions if we can. How about over on this side? You're close to the microphone. Please go right ahead. Say your name and a direct question.
My name is Murad, and I work with the State Department. I have two quick questions. One is regarding the anti-American sentiments, because there are, as you mentioned, a lot of conspiracy theories, and sorry to say, a lot of anchors, they give some kind of comments which further add fuel to that anti-American sentiments. I would like one comment on that. Secondly, when you talk about Pakistani Taliban, they are a group of individuals who come up with the so-called spokesperson, and when they call the honorable, media, they're giving airtime, which in turn, that airtime which is given to the so-called spokesperson further, spread that violence and jeopardize the efforts of the government or international initiatives to counter that extremist violence. Second comment on that, please.
So your questions are about extremists getting airtime and the other one having to do, with conspiracy, the prevalence of conspiracy theories in the media. You guys are all about conspiracy theories, right? You believe in them, you like them, they sell.
That's a conspiracy.
Good one.
Actually,
No,
how bad is it? It's one of the most common things that is said about Pakistan. It's a land of conspiracy theories. Is that fair?
The story is about the wolf, right? And when in that story about the child who cried wolf, the moral of the story is that, your credibility gets stretched if you go on saying wolf, wolf, wolf. The other part of that story is that there was a wolf.
In the end.
No.
So that's, one part of it. The second part that he talked about, which is a fair comment about giving airtime to, I have a view. It may not be a popular view, and I think now that the Americans are also talking to the Taliban, I think it's important for us sometimes to listen to some voices. One of the things that was, we were not allowed to ask certain questions in the post 9/11 period. And I think one of those questions was why it happened. A question that, a lot of us thought about and wanted answers for. And there were no credible voices that came forward and tried to explain. It's one of the most horrendous events in world history. And surely there must have been, apart from just an irrational act, something that drove those people to do what they did. And that question was never really asked in our in media at large. It was sort of pushed away as if, this was something which was just too horrible to even contemplate. Now, these voices come to us in various forms. This phone call that he talked about, somebody pretending to be a spokesman or perhaps the spokesman. We don't know the faces. We don't have an address yet. We still continue to try and grope and find out who these people are who perpetrate all these horrors at mosques, schools, girls' schools, attacks in the UK, etc., etc. What exactly moves these people? And that's something that sometimes when we give the alternative voice a space, we are accused of giving them sanctuary. I don't know whether that's fair or not.
Other thoughts on these subjects before we go back to Anand?
I think if you are talking about Hafiz Saeed, a few channels have policy or terrorist, something like Hafiz Saeed. My channel has very clear policy as far as these terrorists are concerned that we should not give airtime to them, and we don't. Though he gets very good ratings in Pakistan. Ratings are made by somebody, which I don't know. They are friends of Hafiz Saeed. Because nobody knows him in my home as far as my home is concerned. Nobody knows him and Ahmed Ludhianvi, who is a band outfit in Defy Pakistan Council. I received threats by criticizing them, received a lot of emails, phone calls, and I was double under threat because I was Shia as well. So one of the Spy Sahaba person, he called me and he said, we didn't know you were Shia as well. So it's very easy to kill you. So I think this type of environment we are having, and channels should be very particular. I interviewed Haji Muslim Khan. He was not banned at that time on television, but I took him from Sawat during the operation, and he was on TV and he said, our destiny is Delhi. We are going to Delhi, and our destiny, our destination, final destination is for Khilafat, and that is there. So that was for the first time we came to know about his views of pan-Islamism. So I think this was for the first time. On the one hand, we were able to know about his views, and on the other hand, we have certain mullahs in Pakistani society which we should not, which are banned, and which in my point of view, we should not show them on television, but our TV channels are showing them, getting good ratings, and I think here we need a council or something like that, or somebody who can overlook the content and they can see what is going wrong. And I totally agree with you, we should not give them airtime.
Anand is monitoring questions.
Sorry, can I just,
please go ahead, sir.
A couple of things. It's not necessarily just about these people who get airtime, but there can be other problematic areas. I think in the run-up to Salman Taseer's assassination in 2010, the governor in Punjab, some of you may recall, he picked up this issue of this woman convicted for blasphemy, and first woman and sentenced to death. And some of the coverage out there undoubtedly inflamed public opinion. And
He was being accused of blasphemy, and people were carrying.
It led to him being accused of blasphemy, and eventually his own guard killed him. I'm sure that some of I'm not saying that they created the environment, but it was an enabling factor.
Yes.
So that's the downside of it. There's also maybe occasionally a positive side. I think in 2009 and 2010 there were a bunch of attacks inside Pakistan proper in the cities in Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, etc. And most of these cameras were rushing onto the scene of the crime and, sort of broadcasting very gory images from the side. And a number of the channels have since then pulled back from that voluntarily. So it's still, there are some that do, in the heat of the moment, perhaps show limbs and other, perhaps things that should not be broadcast. But there was an attempt within the industry to try, and the electronic media, to try and pull back some of the worst excesses. So again, in Pakistan's case, it's always complicated. So, there's a little bit positive and a lot of negative.
One small point here, Mike.
Please,
very small. Yeah. I think when we talk media, again, we're leaving out another very huge chunk of media, and that's the entertainment area, and that's the niche area. There's 70-odd channels now. There's a fashion channel, which runs 24 hours a day. There are 4 fashion weeks in Pakistan, 2 in Lahore and 2 in Karachi. There are food channels, there are, entertainment channels.
Is the Taliban spokesman given time on the fashion channel?
On the food channel.
On the food channel?
On the
Okay,
food
fine.
channel.
Okay,
I mean,
please continue.
It's a question of, whose stew is cooking at that moment. But anyway, this guy, what I'm trying to say is that even there, you see the influences of change and transition. At one time, the type of drama that was coming out, and now the openness with which certain taboo subjects are being, looked at. I think it's important for us to look at the whole spectrum also. I just wanted to remind people that media is not just the news media, because that's also a reflection of society.
And of course, we've got bloggers and the internet and everything else, and we've been monitoring that. What do we got?
Yeah, actually, a related question from Shamas Malik. Is media corruption increasing as the industry becomes more diversified? And a related question, what's the level of trust amongst the average Pakistani viewers in the wake of this corruption rumor?
Let me suggest, we've discussed the corruption a little bit, but the level of trust, I think, is a fresh way to get at that. Are you losing the trust of your audience?
We've had to scramble. I think the moment this particular thing happened, because this was a guy who was saying that he puts wheels on files in order to get it through. And he also proved that, Pakistan, to a large extent, still is not a state, it's real estate. So the way he was dishing out plots and various other things. But it scared us because his influence had penetrated into the news channels.
You're talking about Malik Riyaz specifically?
Yes, Malik Riyaz. And also I think what happened was that he immediately stepped up a campaign, advertising campaign, which ran for hours and hours and hours on all channels. So we look at that also. I mean, I'm looking at it very seriously, personally, as to why this was allowed. So he was also trying to buy influence at that point and splashed a lot of money. But what happened in the case of Dunya TV, where we felt, a story was being planted, manipulated, and it got on YouTube, and then was picked up by the other channels. The initial reaction was a lot of gloating, but then you realize that maybe we were all sort of naked in this Turkish bath, and something might happen and besmirch a lot of reputations. Plus, the viewers obviously sat back and said, what the hell is going on? You guys were the paragon of virtue. You were people who were telling us the truth all the time, we thought, but you were also dirty. And I think that was simplistic because we all knew that there were, as Asma said, black sheep around. And there are times when we get manipulated by the state, by the military. We know after a while that, hey, here we've been taken for a ride. But the tragedy is that I think we've taken a bashing here, and we need to understand, go in and reflect, and listen to ourselves. It's going back into the echo chamber here.
Other thoughts about whether you're losing trust?
The only question which I raise in front of my management and my seniors, and Imran Saab is also one of them, and I'm going to raise the question, where is our editorial control? Is there any editorial board? Do we have any, do we have institution of editors anymore in Pakistani society? We don't have. This media tycoon, he has very good relationship with he's a friend of Zardari Saab. He's very close to Mian Nawaz Sharif. He's very close to Imran Khan. He's very close to every powerful person, even allegedly he's very close to General Kiani as well. And he's friend of media tycoons as well. So I think the question is, here the role of editor is very important, and that is not anymore. When we started, we were guided properly. This topic should be taken like this should be balanced. If we are raising questions on somebody, we have to take the other body's SOT as well. So we were asked to manage, and if we will not able to manage a balanced story, that was not on air. I think if I'm wrong, please correct me. That was very much there. Once, my husband and me, we were covering Jamaat-e-Islami's rally in Islamabad, and there were around thousands of people over there, but my husband was giving beeper, and he said around 50,000 people are here. And you know, immediately he received a call after the beeper from the director news. Azhar Abbas was the director news, and he said, how could you say that these are 50,000 people? You can say thousands, you can say millions, but you cannot mention the exact figure. So he corrected him at the spot. But you know, now I personally feel nobody is ready to tell us, nobody ready to guide us. There is no editor sitting and controlling us. And I think these are anchors are directly dealing with their bosses' honors, and they are directing them towards their line, their benefits, and their interest. I think this is my opinion. I may be wrong. So the editor's role is very important, and that is no more in our society, in our media.
A broadcast anchor who wants an editor. Never happens, ladies and gentlemen. History, actually, here. Someone has actually said that. Well done, well done.
Thank you.
Let me go here. We've got time for a couple of questions. Let me appeal to you. Just one direct question. We'll go way to the back. Gentleman with your hand raised right there, and the microphone will get to you. Yeah, right there. Go ahead and stand up. And yeah.
Thank you. My name is Behrouz Khan, and I'm asking from Imran, why, and also Asma Shirazi as well, that we are getting coverage of the drone attacks and the supply route, yes. But we are not getting coverage of the militant groups who are in FATA, who are elsewhere in Pakistan, and they are very much there, but there is no mention of them. And particularly when we get the impression that the airspace violation is there, so there is the land sovereignty violation also there by these groups. But we are not getting coverage of those groups.
Let me make sure I understand your question. He's asking, do you cover American abuses obsessively while ignoring or going lightly on militant abuses that probably kill far more Pakistanis?
Yes, I think to a certain extent I'll agree. And there are reasons. I think one of the reasons is access and getting in there. And I think I was talking about exactly this, not knowing the addresses. These are groups, some of them are entrenched and are very visible. And I think those are the ones that we can access and get information from and talk about their excesses. If they commit those crimes of going and blowing up schools, there is coverage of that. Or if they go and blow up a mosque or a shrine or whatever, there is coverage of that. Attribution as to who claims responsibility is that same guy who calls us up and says, we did it. And another 10 groups stand up and say, we did it too. There is an issue. Plus, what Asma was saying, the editorial control that we talk about. I think we've grown very fast, very, very fast. And there is a dearth of professionalism in the media, which I think we should now think about very, very closely, so that questions like this, the yawning gaps in our coverage, don't occur. So I agree with what he was saying. But there are certain areas which are no-go areas, and journalists can't get in there at any time.
I think there is no need to. Do you think I should respond anymore?
I could give a simple example. One of our reporters in Peshawar, his mother passed away, and he was from one of the tribal agencies close by. And he wasn't able to get back to his village for his mother's funeral. It so happened that an army helicopter was going by, and we got him on that, and that's how he got in there. So access is incredibly difficult because, at least at dawn, we'd have genuine interest in covering this, but we can't ask our stringers or reporters in South Waziristan to write about what's happening out there in detail because he's living there and we're not. So there's threats and there's access, and that tends to have a chilling effect on the coverage that you do get of these groups. It's not necessarily because or at least for Dawn, as far as Dawn's concerned, we're not interested in playing up one story and downplaying the other.
When I asked about details, lack of details, this was actually an example that was in my mind. It was a story that I saw being drafted that identified a specific band group with a particular terrorist incident. But by the time it was published, the name of the group was removed. And I was told, well, it's really just kind of not safe. And what if the information is wrong? You could actually get killed doing that. It's dangerous to tell these stories.
It can happen because, every line, you're playing with your life sometimes. It is the most dangerous country as far as journalists are concerned. Yesterday there was an argument as to whether we were the number 2 or number 1. And it was a very sordid argument, but that's the way it was.
Did you argue, we're number 1, we're number 1?
I wanted to say that, but it felt terrible.
Yeah.
I just go, I've taken several questions from men. Is there a woman who wants to give a question? I'll do a little affirmative action here. way in the back. That's a woman back there, isn't it? Yes, in a pink. Yes.
Thank you. It's Michal Fishman. I just wanted to ask about the accountability issue you spoke to earlier, and what can we as communicators, I work for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, do to help you as journalists get greater accountability of facts and figures and stories, and what do you see that is going to happen within your culture, within your profession, that will change that?
Go ahead, anyone?
I think as far as this credibility question is concerned, how can you help us? Okay.
Training programs?
Yeah,
exchanges?
the capacity building programs should be there because our media is very immature, and most of journalists, they came from print media and few were new, and they didn't know the ethics and the power of mic they hold in their hands, that was very unique in a society where television is something, So I think capacity building programs should be started, and exchange program, young journalist program should be there. They must come to U.S. and U.S. journalists must go to Pakistan. It's a great country to cover. You have many stories. Many stories. You can meet Taliban, you can meet anybody.
On a dark alley.
Maybe not Mullah Omar.
Yeah, maybe not Mullah Omar. We are looking for him. Maybe in Peshawar or Quetta somewhere. But, it's just a joke. Please don't take it seriously. But yes, capacity building programs should be run, and I think this is the area should be focused by US, and they should. Luckily I was one of the journalists who got training, and I was trained when
by Americans.
When Imran Sah was there, I was working with Geo, and we had refresher courses after 1 year. Then I think they left 2 and I left 2. So, now youth is joining TV and they don't know much about camera and technical facilities and balanced stories and content, everything, I think. So capacity building is a thing where US should focus and
I wonder if you already hit on a critical question when you talked about editors, about having an organization behind you that has some kind of DNA of trying to get the story right. That seems rather critical.
Very important. So you've got the version, the other person's version, and how you present it is the subversion.
Yeah. And we should leave to the people, yeah. They must understand.
Oh, my goodness. I need to wrap this up, and yet something you just said makes me want to quote Norman Mailer, that well-known Pakistani journalist, who wrote once that newspaper writers are always presenting a version of reality that is just slightly off, and consequently the public is just slightly insane. So it's not a problem that is limited to Pakistan. Go ahead, you get the last word.
I should mention, because, and that is regarding the safety of our journalists. Pakistan is the most dangerous place for journalists right now. And as I told earlier, that we are receiving threats from all groups, either it's BLA, these are state agencies, or political parties, or Taliban, or various Talibans. Inside the Taliban, there are Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, Spy Sahaba, and everything, I think. So the safety of journalists should be prioritized, and organizations in Pakistan, they must look towards this as well. They must secure their journalists, because they are covering bomb blast and everything. And in the haste of breaking news first, we have lost many our camera persons and many our reporters as well. So I think this is the area where training programs should be there for field journalists, for camera persons, for reporters, for anchors, and how to cover and how to guard themselves. And I think life is very important, which is in danger as far as journalists are concerned in Pakistan. This is my request to all of you. Yeah.
If I can do this without getting you tangled in the microphones, can I ask our panelists to stand, and would you join me in thanking them for their participation and for their wisdom? Thank you very much.
And can I ask everyone to please thank our moderator, Steve Inskeep, who did such a wonderful job. Folks, we've covered a lot of ground here. There's a lot of people I want to thank for all the help here. First, thank you to the U.S.-Pakistan Leadership Forum for having made this occasion possible. Thank you to American Abroad Media for their help with this event. Christine Mosher, Anand Varghese there on the Twitter feed. Thank you all very, very much. I know we're all a bit richer, smarter for what we've heard here today. And if you want to get even smarter, pick up some of the materials from our Pakistan program out on the table outside. I think you'll find some very useful material there. Thanks again, everyone.